Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Hing.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio. Inspiration, brave action, and heartwarming journeys. This is what the Louise H. Reed Show brings you. Now, here's your host, Louise H. Reed.
Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to the show. Each week, as you know, I invite you to sit in on a conversation with a new guest where we get level, bringing you real people, real issues, real conversations. My hope is you walk away from the show inspired and equipped to level up in your own life and leadership. If you'd like a copy of the best of notes and quotes from the show, please subscribe to my email list at louisehreed.com. Finally, I love to give away exclusive Lady Boss loyalty swag as a way of saying thank you to you for spending your time with me. So to get your hands on some, simply comment on a podcast episode with the hashtag LadyBossLoyalty, and you'll automatically be entered into the draw. Without further ado, let me introduce you to today's wonderful guest. Today we have with us Shanmugam, who is a life coach and mindset coach and many other things. And there's many things, as we'll hear from Visa, why I felt connected to her. Really, one of the biggest things that I enjoy is she wants to connect with women who are ambitious, hardworking, and successful, but find themselves unfulfilled and disconnected from life. And I know that is many of the women that I have come across, many women I work with. And so I bring her to you to help you understand how you can also go from being powerless spectators of your life to becoming powerful creators of their future without doing more. Those are Visa's words. That's what Visa does. That is the gem and magic that she brings to the world. In our conversation today, you'll hear how Visa has learned through her own life experience to break free from your prison of perfectionism, self-doubt, and negative thinking through radical self-love, self-acceptance, and spirituality. And who does not want more of that and need more of that in their life right now? Visa, my friend, welcome to the show.
So excited. It's like a pinch me moment. Like I have dreamed about being on your radio show ever since I got on LinkedIn as a platform.
You are that's the kindest. I love the energy. Those who are listening can hear it watching on Facebook Live or catching this on replay. I could just see it. I can hear it, see it. You're like totally buzzing. I am excited for this conversation for so many reasons, and appreciate the time that you're sharing with us. I didn't say it as well, and I want listeners to know this, that this is what you do now. Like all of us, we've got a past and a history and a story of what got us here. And so you're also coming to us as a woman with a degree in marketing and an MBA. And so you've got a powerful complement of skills, expertise, industry knowledge, going the formal kind of route that we're all sort of expected to go through life. And again, like many of us, get to a fork in the road, and this is what you do and bring to us now. Okay, so I wanted to say that. And then, yes, of course. And I did not know this, so I want to just start this first, even before I forget, because I'm curious. You just told me moments before getting on live that you've just launched a book this week. So I need to, let's just start there, shall we? Because I need to know about this book. Tell us about it. Tell us all about it.
It's the craziest story. So just like you mentioned, right? I've been through the whole corporate world, the hamster wheel, 9-to-5 feeling, and feeling like this is it with life. Like I have no other choice. I have got to go through the rest of life. I just got to suck it up. Like I used to be in that world. Until one day you realize, oh, I do have a choice. So we won't go into that full story, but I stepped out into entrepreneurship, and here we are. I'm a coach. But I didn't feel this confident in what I'm doing as I am today. So 2.5 years ago, I was I was in the network marketing world. For those of you that don't know what it is, it's multi-level marketing. A lot of women go into it because they want to be stay-at-home moms and make money. And so I was in the network marketing world, determined to get to the top because that's who I am. I'm ambitious. I have huge dreams always. And so I hired a life/business coach to help me do that. And she had a retreat at the time. I went to the retreat, swore up and down, I don't have a spiritual bone in my body, right? I used to live in my head all the time, a super analytical, rational, logical person. So this whole spiritual world was opening up to me, and I was so resistant to it. I wasn't getting any messages, no intuitive downloads, nothing. But during this retreat, that was one meditation where we were supposed to connect to our future self. And I was like, here we go, I'm going to see nothing again. But at the end of the meditation, what I saw was a very clear vision of me in a particular dress, standing on stage, giving a talk to hundreds of women in an auditorium. And then the image shifted and I was signing books. And I was on a red carpet. My husband and my kids were so proud of me. And at the end of the meditation, when the meditation ended, like we were supposed to merge our physical current self with our future self. And I broke down sobbing because I realized that that future self was already within me. That was a truth I was very resistant to. And so when I let go of that resistance and I allowed her to integrate with me, I felt like this huge release. So I cried. It was amazing. Life went on. And I was like, I don't know how all of this stuff is coming true because I didn't write at the time. I wasn't a coach, nothing. But life evolves. The universe brings the opportunity. Sure enough, I then transitioned to becoming a coach. I did give that speech in that exact dress about a year ago, holding the mic in an auditorium with hundreds of women. I mean, talk about a pinch me moment, right? Mm. And then out of that event I was at, one of the other speakers invited me to be a co-author in a book project she was putting together. So she'd invited other women to write their stories as part of a chapter of this book. And that's when I knew. I was like, oh my gosh, everything in that meditation is coming true. So of course I had to say yes. I wrote the chapter in the book, and the book was launched on Amazon last week. So it's called Her Global Voice. I freaked out when I saw my face on Amazon. It's called Her Global Voice, Feminine Leaders Sharing Their Story to Change and Empower Your Heart, Soul, and Spirit. So it's kind of a long title, but the vision of this project was for each one of us to share our story and to make you, the reader, realize that your story has a place in this world too, that it has value. And by us sharing it, we want to inspire you to do the same. So it's available in Kindle format right now on Amazon.
Yay! That's so exciting. Congratulations. I don't know how I missed that when we connected a little while ago.
Yeah, there was some hiccups in the project, so.
Yeah, you were keeping that little secret from me. Again, congratulations. It's such a project to be part of. What did you learn about yourself going through that process of writing?
I learned that I have a lot to say, and there's another book that needs to come out at some point. And oftentimes, and I had to reveal certain parts of myself that was very hard to reveal. But I knew that if I'm going to be in alignment with what I teach and I tell other women to do, like you have to expose certain parts of yourself that you feel you ought to be closed out of fear, right? So it's really hard. I had to tell my family members, like, I'm going to be writing about this. I'm sorry. And they did not want me to, out of love. And I went ahead and did it anyway. So that to me showed how far I've evolved in my life, because in the past, I would have accepted what they wanted and I would have done it because I was a people pleaser.
So much to unpack here, hey? You made a comment that you used to live in your head, and that really, really resonated with me. I've got a degree in science. My dad's a nuclear physicist. You know, it was science and maths all the way. And so it's very interesting how in some ways, it's an easier place to live until it becomes a prison. And you mentioned that in how you share in what it is that you do and how you help and how you help women. And that's really something that struck me when I learned that about you, or when I read that about you,
Mm-hmm.
and intrigued me to learn more about you and have you on the show, was even how you used that term, that you want to help women break free from your prison. And you define that further. How did you get to the point in your own life that you recognized that what you were in, you could characterize as a prison?
Ooh, how I
That's
wouldn't say it was,
that's a long story, I'm sure.
yeah.
Because the process, right?
Yeah, it wasn't a single moment. I would say the first instance or taste of it that I got was even to this day, I live with an autoimmune disease. And I got diagnosed with that when I was 23. I was very young. And for 11 years, I lived in extreme pain, discomfort, joint inflammation. I had 2 babies during that time. And I was so used to swallowing so many pills a day. Like I used to take 30 prescription pills a day to manage the pain. And I listened to the doctors, right? They said, this is a lifelong disease. There's no cure. You just have to treat it. And I believed every single word that they said, because it's science. They're doctors. You place them on a pedestal. They know best. And I remember one day waking up and this voice started asking, how can you sustain what you're doing for the rest of your life? Like I couldn't fathom swallowing 30 pills for another 60 years if I was lucky enough to live that long. And another voice said, you can't do this. You can't keep going this way. There's got to be another way. And at the time, I was like, what another way? Like there's no other choice. This is it. And the voice wouldn't go away. And that was the first time I started kind of giving that voice more and more room to speak up. And then that in itself is another whole story, right? Where then I was like, okay, you start asking different questions. Instead of always coming up with the answer of there is no other choice, you start to ask, well, what other choice do I have, right? When we ask a different question, we get presented with different answers. And so I was led to go see a doctor that lived quite far away from me at the time. Everyone thought I was crazy to spend all this money on the treatment she was suggesting. But within 6 months of following my intuition, I was able to get off 70% of my prescription meds.
Wow.
And today I live prescription free, even though I still have the disease.
Wow.
Right? So that was my first taste of what can happen in your life if you stop listening to your head and start listening to your heart.
Oh. Congratulations to you on that, and kudos to you for giving yourself the heart space to, and then having the courage to take action. There's such a difference, right? It's one thing to live in your head. It's another thing to then start listening to your heart or your intuition, the universe, God, whatever you want to call the inner voice. And then it's another thing to actually have the courage to take action on it, right? There's a lot all wrapped up in that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are terrified of following through on what their heart is telling them to do, because at that time it feels so incredibly selfish. I remember feeling so selfish of wanting to pursue this slim chance at healing my body, right? It was a very slim chance. And I was thinking to myself, imagine what you could use this money for. It could go towards your kids' college, right? That's how much it was. And I could have, so that was my head talking, saying, no, don't use this money. There's no guarantee it can work. Put it towards something that is a guarantee, which is your children's education. And I had to overcome that feeling of immense guilt and selfishness and shame, right? With selfishness, there's shame attached to it. I had to put all that noise aside and just say, I have to try this all myself.
And I realized that you and I are having we're having a coffee conversation about something that took years for you to go through, years for you to learn, and years for you to become. And that there are no quick answers. There's not a pill for this. Now with that said, if others are listening and hearing like, oh my gosh, that's me. Beyond of course, I've encouraged them to reach out to you and see how they can work with you.
Yeah.
Can you give us like a first little step that they may take away from this conversation that will allow them to start or embark on this self-discovery and evolution process themselves to get out of that prison?
Yeah, so I think if you want to get into the practice of listening to your heart, we tend to put a lot of pressure on it with just the big decisions, right? Do I quit my job or do I not quit my job? Heart, what do you say? Right? That's too much pressure. Like, don't do that. Don't start with that. But instead, start with your lunch, right? There's zero pressure on getting it wrong. Ask your heart as opposed to your head, what do I feel like having for lunch today? Is it pizza or is it a salad, right? And then that day, maybe you're telling yourself, I should eat a salad because I'm trying to lose weight, right? But oftentimes your heart might be like, just have one slice without the guilt, right? That's a very different way. It's the energy that you're consuming something with. Like when you consume a salad, when you're shooting yourself, is very different of having a joyful slice of pizza. It's two very different energies. So like do little things to connect with your heart, to ask what you want it to do. Is it taking a bath today versus going for a workout? Which one makes your heart skip a beat, right? And it's really about taking those tiny little steps to start to trust, right? Because oftentimes it's the trust that's missing, which is why we're so scared to ask our hearts what we wanted to do. So start building trust in this way. Go to the grocery store without a shopping list, which today might be kind of a stressful exercise. But allow yourself to be led and buy things that make you feel good, right? It's about being in the present moment. Like if we want our hearts to speak to us, it's being with yourself instead of worrying or stressing about something else. So these are all little things that you can do to start hearing and listening to your heart. It's about creating space. I'm getting into my coaching head and what I tell my clients to do. It's like, take a breath. Like when you're stressed about a decision, stop, slow down, take a breath, put your hand on your heart, take a couple of deep breaths, and then try to figure out what the answer is.
So I love those suggestions you just gave. I really do. I want to read to you a text that I sent to one of my coaching clients this morning. I texted her, this is all that it is. This is in follow-up to a call that we had yesterday. I said, remember to take 3 deep breaths when you break to pee. Every time, every day for the next 2 weeks. That is her homework.
Yeah.
Because she was saying to me yesterday that she's even stressed when she's taking a bathroom break because she's got, she works in a retirement home right now. So there's also during COVID, pretty stressful, understandable. But even going to the washroom is not a moment, can't even take 30, is not able even in her headspace right now to be able to take a breath. So I love that you talked about the breath, and then B, those great suggestions that get you into the practice of listening, what it means to listen to your heart. What wonderful suggestions. What do you mean when you say radical self-love?
So I believe that a lot of us reserve learning to love ourselves when we get to a certain number on our scale, or when we get to a certain level in our job, or when we find the love of our life. And then I really like who I see in the mirror, right? And radical self-love, it's about, I choose to love myself in this moment, no matter who I am in this moment, whether that's me being cranky because I woke up without enough sleep, right? Like I do that to my husband so many times.
Sorry, husband.
I'm like this raging lunatic, and he's like, you haven't had enough sleep, have you? But I still choose to love myself in that moment anyway without judging myself, right? And it's about we all are imperfect, right? Every single one of us are imperfect. I mean, I just signed on somebody who is an Olympic medal winner as a client, and she doesn't like herself. Like, how is that possible, right? You think that somebody who's got an Olympic medal has it all figured out.
Yeah.
But every single one of us has this curse in some way where we cannot like and love ourselves because we have all of these reasons. And so radical self-love is about learning to push all that noise away and saying, who I am in this moment is, I'm perfect the way I am. I will continue to work on myself, but I am perfect the way I am.
And why? And we need that more in the world. We certainly need that more in the world. I hear you on the I'm not enough piece. That's just a common thread through certainly everyone that I have worked with. And somehow it's shocking, isn't it, when we see individuals who have quote unquote made it, right? However you want to sort of define made it.
Yeah.
But in our society, they're the executives, or they're a successful business owner, or they're an Olympic athlete. We think that they must then have that's right. Their insides must match their outsides.
Yeah.
And a lot of that self-acceptance and self-love is absent in so many people. How is self-love different than, or radical self-love different than self-acceptance?
So radical self-love, I would say, as a mother, right? I have 2 kids. It's about learning to put myself first always. And that sounds like such a terrible thing to say as a mother, right? But for me, I've had to learn that when I take care of myself first and foremost, then my family is so much better off. So radical self-love might be my kids want me to play with them and I get to say no. Like today I've given and given and given and I have no more left to give you guys today and I am sorry. Like that's not going to be today, right? Like as a mother, that sounds very counterintuitive of what we're told a good mother is. But that's what I call self-love. Like and then the self-acceptance is part of it. I wouldn't say it's really different.
Right.
Because I'm able to accept that who I am in this moment as a mother is okay, I'm able to give myself that radical self-love.
Right. Really connected.
Yeah.
I'm wanting to change gears a little bit here, because I got so wrapped up in moments before the show about hearing about your book. I just sort of jumped right on into this. So what I like to do is I'm just gonna take a step back and take a breath myself. So the thing that I'm really curious about right now, and I really think I've always been, I know I've always been really curious about, is getting level. And when I say wanting to get level and get real, I'm wanting to get level and real in our conversations. I'm wanting to get level and get real with equality, equity, inclusion. And it's something that has been interesting to me. I recall since I was 16, I'm sure it started much before then. And so when I say I want to get level, those are kinds of some of the things that I think about. What do you think that we need to get more real and get level about?
I think we need to get very real about our struggles. Like I've gone through depression multiple times in my life, right? And that's something I'm Indian origin, and that's something that is kept behind closed doors. Like you don't tell people your struggles. All you do is exude how wonderful your life is. And I talk about things openly with my audience. And when I first started this career, I remember it used to make my parents extremely uncomfortable. And I have loving, supportive, the best parents in the world, but they were trying to protect their little girl, right? Like, how is this going to affect her? How are people going to perceive you in our community? And it's a very like tight knit, close community where everybody knows everybody. That's what they were trying to protect me from. And now the more I show up and the more I talk about my own struggles, the more it allows other women to be like, oh, like I'm okay. Like I'm not broken, right? It's something that I go through. And we all tend to put up this wall and think we need to show the world how great and perfect we are. But in fact, it's your imperfection that gives you your strength and allows other people to also allow themselves to be imperfect, right? So I just wish that people will be more open about their struggles. Like as a coach, I don't have it all figured out.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell my clients that all the time. And that's what makes them want to sign up with me.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, you come on LinkedIn and talk about the fights you've had with your husband and the struggles you have with your kids. And yet you still have managed to have this life where you are joyful and passionate and you
Mm-hmm.
feel full. Like, we get that from you. And so it gives them permission, like, maybe there's hope for me too.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I agree with all of the above. Yes to all of the above. If there was a checkbox for that, yes. I recall when I first started working with my current coach, I was talking to her about, I remember saying, I'm going to do this thing until this other part of my life starts to take off. And she said, wait a second, why can't it be yes and? And I'm not going into the details of what it was about because it's actually irrelevant. What you were just sharing, it reminded me of that. And I use it so much in my own life now. I'm in the process of writing a book on leadership, and it's actually a key component in my leadership book, and that's the yes and. So what you just said, I thought was really neat, is yes, I have struggles, and yes, I have challenges or fights with my husband, and I have a great relationship and a fulfilling life and a fulfilling career. It's not one or the other. It can be yes and. And I think yes and is so powerful.
Absolutely.
Such a powerful approach that we can have conflicting feelings and things happening and be all at the same time.
Yeah, that's what makes us human, right? It's a constant evolution. And I wish, going back to your previous question of like, what do we wish like people would just level with you? It's about our mistakes and our failures.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I wish more people would just own up and be like, yeah, I did this, it didn't work out, and then I pivoted, or I quit that and then I tried something else. I used to have so much shame around changing my mind about stuff. Like, I quit corporate America and I gave up all these great benefits and the money. And I felt so much shame around like, what's wrong with me that I would actually voluntarily walk away from this kind of a life. And then I've tried a couple of other business ventures that wasn't anywhere near as successful as what I'm doing today as a coach. And I share about all of that. It's because without those mistakes, I never would be here.
Yeah.
And so our mistakes, I think people are terrified of making mistakes and being seen, they see themselves as a failure, right? Mm-hmm. And I want people to talk more about their failures because that's what has brought you to this moment. Without those failures, you wouldn't be who you are today. Those failures taught you something.
And, those who listen regularly know that I totally love cliches. And there's so much truth in so many of them. You just, now I'm just going to totally mess it up. You just said something that reminded me of a cliche and I've forgotten the cliche. But it's this idea of like learning through failure. It's a lot of, I find that people at times can kind of get annoyed by those or frustrated by those things. But if you truly sit with these things for a moment and understand what is behind it, there's so much power in those simple truths.
Absolutely. And it goes back to the topic that we're talking about, self-acceptance, right? It's like right now, if you struggle with failure, that's because you're judging yourself when you fail. There is that self-acceptance isn't there. Mm-hmm. There's rejection that's happening, which is why you're so scared to fail. But so when we learn to accept ourselves, no matter the results, then failure becomes easier.
And something I find really interesting is that somehow there's safety in sharing your failures once you're a success. And that's not what it's like. I guess it's kind of helpful. I mean, at least those people, some people are coming, open and getting real about that. I think we really need to get more real about sharing the failures along the way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it is, there is safety in sharing your failure once you're at a certain level, right? But it takes real courage to share your failures along the way to your success. And I think that gives people even more courage. Like, for instance, this reminds me, I was actually auditioning for a speaking spot this October, and I brought my audience along with it. Like, I was one of 96 people who turned out for the first round. I was down to like the last 25, right? And they were going to choose like, I think 8 people or 10 people from that. And I practiced, I gave it my all, and I didn't get chosen. Yeah. So I sent an email out with the email subject header, and everyone who was reading it, I'm sure, thought I had been selected, because that's when you send the email out, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, and I didn't get chosen. Wah, wah, wah. But the lesson in that is, this one event isn't gonna determine my success or failure.
Yeah.
Right? It's just one of the many stepping stones to my future, and I'm going to be okay. Like, this no longer defines me. Like 2 years ago, I would have been crushed. I would have been so embarrassed. But it was an example for me to show them, like, look what happens when you work on accepting yourself. Like, this is a blip in my story.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Yeah, we need more of that. We so need more of that. Kudos to you for doing that. Kudos to you for getting selected, like, and whittled down from pretty much 100 to 25.
Yeah. I was so damn sure I was going to get selected. I nailed that audition. I was like, I got this in the bag. And then I heard the news, oh, you didn't get it. I was like, oh.
I love that, though. I love that. I love that confidence. There's such a fine line. What do you think is the line between arrogance and confidence? Because I think that's a thing that especially women struggle with too. I no doubt men will as well. I don't see men caring about it as much, but I don't get the male experience. So let's just talk about women. So do you see that women are concerned about confidence coming across as arrogance?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Women, every single woman I've ever come across has all the goods to be confident, and she still feels it's not enough. Mm-hmm. And her fear is, if I come across as confident, it's going to be read as arrogance. And there's nothing, I'm like, go as far as arrogance. If you think you're being arrogant, you're probably just about being confident.
So where does confidence come from? Because it's deep, right?
I feel it's on the inside. It has to come from the inside. And confidence comes from, I keep going back to the self-love, right? When you learn to truly love who you are in any given moment and accepting yourself for who you are without waiting for other people to accept you, that's confidence to me.
I love that.
Yeah.
So you've gone through a lot of things in your life, some of which you've already shared on the show. What's the biggest obstacle that you've had to overcome so far, and what did that teach you?
The biggest obstacle is probably the cultural imprinting I've had growing up as an Indian, right? Even though I've lived and grew up in the UK and I've lived in America for the majority of my life, the formative years when most of our beliefs and the stories that we tell ourselves get formed was when I was growing up in India. So like my skin color was a big issue. I was the darkest, out of I lived with an extended family, uncles, aunts, grandparents. I'd been teased about my skin tone compared to my brother, who's more fair skinned than I am, who's always from, like, when he could speak, he said he wanted to be a doctor, and he's a doctor today. And I was a kid who had no idea what I wanted to do. I changed my mind all the time, right? So I got compared to him a lot in a well-meaning way. That's just how the Indian community works. They outrightly kind of say, oh, so sad, like, she's a girl and she's so dark, right? Like, because in India, if you have fair skin, there's colorism in India, there's colorism everywhere. You don't get rated as beautiful. So that's the voice I still hear to this day. And then again, I got teased for my religion and the God that I prayed to, because my dad worked in a different part of India where we weren't like the majority religion, right? So the kids at school would tease me and call me names because I believed in a different God to who they prayed to.
Right.
All of that stuff, I had to unpack it and make myself be okay with who I am and feel safe in my body. For the longest time, I didn't realize I didn't feel safe in my body, which was then showing up as self-sabotage in all my businesses. Because in order to be successful as an entrepreneur, you've got to show up, you've got to speak up, you've got to know who you are. And so growing up, I didn't feel safe to be me. And I didn't realize this was all manifesting in my business life, right? So I had to, through working with many, many coaches, I've had to unpack and learn to love that little girl inside who felt so ugly, who felt unaccepted, right? And this is despite having the most stable, like, family upbringing and parents. I thought I was like, I had one of the happiest lives, and I did, but I didn't realize all of this stuff had to be unpacked as well.
All this messaging that we get, some directly stated, but so much of it is subtle messaging, whether it's through our parents, through our other relatives, through the media, through society in general, through kids at school. It's all integrated so differently in each little person, right? And I
Absolutely.
know, you know,
and growing up, you know, girls, unfortunately, are not as important as a boy. That's just the truth of what it is in India. That's like, it's done through movies, like, as you say, it's media. Girls and boys are just rated differently in terms of value of their life. I'm sad to say it. And so that gets imprinted in some way.
Of course. And I think that, so I was working with a client, she's not a client anymore, but she said to me once, I really want to work with you, but I don't want to go into any of the things from my childhood. So I said, we talked about the things that she wanted to achieve. I said, well, do you trust me to help you achieve that? And she's like, yeah. I said, okay. So what did we end up doing? I mean,
unpacking her childhood.
I mean, you can't escape it. It's where it starts. And she's like, oh, this is what you were talking about. I'm like, yeah. Like, okay, now I get it. It's there. And, you know, I've got children of my own. You have children too. And it's really hard. We can imagine now how badly our parents must feel.
Yes.
That they contributed in some way, which they did. My parents too, loving, well-meaning. I think that I had the best childhood, you know. So it happens in the best of times. It's a fascinating.
And it always comes from a place of love. Our parents, you know, if you've had like really great parents, like the both of us have had, they don't ever intention for any of this to happen. They are just doing the best that they could and they can. And we are doing the best that we can, given this new information that we have access to, right? It's always about doing better, knowing what we know now. So now my parenting style is so different. And I'm so grateful every day that I know how to parent this way. And the only reason I know how, it's because it didn't come through a book. It's because I worked on myself. So when I get clients approaching me to work with me, one of the things I tell them is, you are going to get so much out of it. Your parts of your life are going to work so well that you don't even realize like what the results are going to be. And 99% of the time, my clients are like, oh my gosh, I feel so good as a parent. My relationship with my son or my daughter is so much better because of the work I have done on myself.
Happiness is an inside job, friends. It's an inside job. And it's like, as much as we try to compartmentalize aspects of our lives,
it's impossible.
It's impossible. The spillover, and how wonderful that there is. You talked earlier on the show that you didn't call them this, I don't think. Sorry that if I'm mislabeling it, but you sort of like big scary dreams or big audacious goals were to be on stage and to write a book. That's the vision and image you had of your future self when you mentioned the meditation that you did. So what now? What's been your next? Have you had your next download yet?
I have not. I've actually been talking, this is going to sound so woo-woo. I've been talking to my guides, right? I believe we all have an invisible army of energy waiting to help us. I've been talking to my guides and asking them, what is the next step? I've been journaling. I'm ready for the next step. And it hasn't shown up yet. Not to say it never will, but I'm taking this as a time for resting, getting really good at what I do before I put the pedal to the metal again. There's always phases of our life where we go full force, and then there are phases of our life where we just need to just be, right? And
I'm looking forward to the being part, because right now I'm still riding this massive wave, and so good. So right now, so how do you rest? How do you rest?
How do you rest?
How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you rest? How do you
Well, the quarantine has been wonderful. I have loved it. I have thrived after the initial bumpy phase of getting used to it, right? So
Right.
how do I rest? I'm a meditator and a journaler. Every single day I honor myself through those practices. My kids know, like I put the fear of death in them. Like you do not walk into that bedroom when mom's meditating. Like now that it's summer, I went out yesterday. I was listening to my favorite soundtrack, The Greatest Showman. And I laid out on the grass. I sunk my feet in the grass, my hands in the grass, and I love it. I call it grounding. If you've never done it, it is the quickest natural high that you can get. Turn on your favorite music, go ground yourself. I just started playing the piano, gave myself permission to suck, right?
Yeah.
I love it. It's my creative outlet. So there's like 5 things in a day that I do that gives me space to just be me. I signed up for an endurance event that's all the way out in October. So we got the training schedule. So I just go through that schedule. Whatever that day asks me to do, like I take it seriously. I'm like, if I don't do this stuff, I'm going to die up on that mountain of that endurance event. So I do that. It's not much, but it's like 20 to 30 minutes of moving my body every day. And I live in Maryland, so we have the most beautiful trails. And I go soak myself in nature. I have realized over the last 2 years that nature is the balm to my soul. Whenever anything is going on, I just go outside, whether it's just access to grass or access to trees and woods and water. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm able to bring my energy back. And yeah, that's my medicine.
It is mine as well. It's absolutely food for my soul. I think I say that to my kids, the woods, being in the woods, food for my soul. I heard about this term, which you'll know about, no doubt, called forest bathing. Because I was talking to my dad about how nature, I said, I actually feel like as soon as I walk in there is, I didn't say to him, the nuclear physicist father, I didn't say I feel an energy exchange. He would have probably taken a few steps back from me, wondering what I was going to, come out with. But I said, it does have a physical interaction with me, and so he got enough from what I was saying. He's like, oh, have you heard of something called forest bathing? And that's exactly what it is. It's about the movement and energy of the forest. And that the energy that does get transmitted to one who might be in it. So sort of you gave a really great, which I've not done, a really great example of how you can do a quick hit, right, of that, right? Go into your backyard, put your favorite soundtrack on, and just and lie down on the ground. Like, why have I not done that?
Yeah, walk the feet in your grass. Oh my gosh, I did that for like 20 minutes yesterday, and I felt so good just after that 20 minutes, and I was ready to go for the rest of the day.
Yeah, there is so those listening who haven't really made that kind of connection with nature before, give that I encourage you I challenge you to give that a try, even just like Visa was saying, like bare feet in the grass. My partner will, as soon as the weather is even remotely decent, and I live in Canada where there's snow on the ground much of the time, when the weather is remotely different, and my version of remotely different is very different than Jay's version of remotely suitable, his bare feet will be on the grass. Having stepped on a bee and gotten the stinger stuck in my toe when I was young, I'm somehow scarred from the walking on the grass, but I think I need to get over it. You've challenged me enough, Visa. I'm going to get over that.
Oh, yay.
So one of the things one of the many things that fascinates me is how people view success, because in our society, I think we've got a very narrow view of what success means.
Yep.
I think
it's usually always tied to numbers.
Absolutely. And so when we say, oh, someone's really successful, everyone knows what that means, to your point. It's the good job, it's the good outside stuff that shows that someone has somehow achieved success. What is, at this stage of your life, really tactically, like really specifically, what is success? How is success measured for you in your life?
For me, it's what I call alignment. And for those of you who don't know what alignment might be, it's the version of you that you present to the outside world, and the you, that's the core you on the inside. Are they one and the same? if they are two different things, then that to me is not successful, right? And I used to be two different things. I used to be like this version that I thought I had to exude to impress people. And then on the inside, I'd be like, oh, but I'm not good enough. Like, you're not validating me. You're not recognizing me. I'm not being included in this, la, 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 la. And it was so draining. And today, the version I present to the world outside and who I am on the inside is very much like a lot of overlap. Obviously, there are always parts of ourselves that are very private and we keep to ourselves.
Of course.
But for the most part, and so when people meet me in real life, they're like, oh my gosh, like, it's just, you are who you are. And I wear my heart on my sleeve, and not in the way for getting validation, but really in service mode, right? So for me, that's what success is. It's about the quality of my relationships. I used to be so obsessed with the number of friends I had. It sounds so shallow, but now I have very few friends, but they're the type of people who get me. I can pick up the phone and talk about like really spiritual woo stuff. They don't bat an eyelid, right? And so success is when I go to bed at night and I can look at my day and say, wow, and give myself a pat on the back because I took time out for myself. I played with my kids. I did, my job, like it filled my cup, and I helped a woman or several women. That to me is success. I'm like, oh, I feel good about who I am,
I love that description. Thanks for sharing those. I one of the things that was really upsetting to me when I was doing some of the inner work myself before I started coaching was I took inventory of the things I did over the course of each day for about a week. So I just had a journal on each page. I split in half and I wrote down the things, the big kind of things. Not like every little moment play by play, but essentially what I spent my days doing. And I either put it on one side of the page that was love, and then on the other side of the page was loathe. Did I love doing this or did I loathe it? And it was pretty devastating at the end of the week, right? It's like, well, what did I think I was going to find out? Because I knew I was pretty miserable. So did I expect that I was going to find lots of joyful? No. But seeing it in, on paper like that was really, really difficult. And so that's why I love what you just shared in terms of, at the end of each day, almost being able to have that check and know what a successful day feels like and looks like, because, you add successful days together, you're probably going to have success.
Absolutely.
So thanks for breaking it down like that. I really appreciated that, and I know listeners will have as well. We I know are coming close to the top of our time together. I'm wondering if I could ask you some rapid fire questions.
Go for it.
Okay. What advice would you give to your younger self?
Be patient, be understanding, and you already came in pre-built with everything you needed to achieve your wildest dreams.
That belongs on a plaque somewhere or something. What does the world need more of?
Love. I know that sounds so cliche, but more love for ourselves. Just more than just the generic term love, it's more love for ourselves. When we learn to love ourselves deeper, then we have the capacity to accept others for who they are.
More radical self-love.
Yes, always. That's my solution to everything.
Well, that's what I think is kind of cool about what you do, is you've been able to really break it down to the core of what you believe to be true, right? And that's a really effective way of being able to move people from where they are to where they want to be. I think it's great. Do you have a go-to book or podcast that you like to share with others that you could share with our audience?
So my go-to book, it's the one that's changed my life when I read it, is Gabrielle Bernstein is the author, The Universe Has Your Back. I remember reading that book and being so blown away with every chapter. It was audible, so it's even more powerful because it's being read by the author. I remember having to pull over the car one day and stopping and crying and sobbing and gasping for air because of what she was saying, the truth. And I won't go into what that is, but it literally changed my life. It made me realize your happiness is in your control.
What a powerful takeaway. Those who know me well, know that I love to say, be brave, be bold, be happy. What does being brave, bold, and happy mean to you?
Being brave for me means having the courage to listen to your truth and put that ahead of everybody else and being able to take action. That's being bold for me. It takes a lot of courage to be able to listen to what it is that you want and always being able to put yourself first.
I love that. And finally, no, not finally, but two things. Two things. I don't want this conversation to end. So there's two things. One is, how can people get a hold of you? What is the best way for people to learn more about you? Get a copy of the book, which I know you also mentioned earlier, but get a copy of the book, find out more about your coaching. What's the best way for those to reach you?
So you can find me, my book is on Amazon right now. It is at a steal for 99 cents. So go grab it, because that price is going to go up in like a week's time. It's called Her Global Voice. And so that you can get that. And then I'm super active on LinkedIn. If you followed Louise for any amount of time, you know, she's amazing on LinkedIn. So you can find me there under Visa Shanmugam. That's where I'm most active. And then I'm on Instagram as well under Visa Shanmugam. So like my name isn't very popular. So you can find me under Visa Shanmugam on LinkedIn and Instagram.
Awesome. So Visa's name and coordinates for LinkedIn, you will find in the show notes. So check that out. So if you're driving, please don't try to write down her last name right now. And then finally, any closing words or thoughts that you wanted to share with listeners as we close the show?
I know we live in very tumultuous times. I feel like we were just all coming up for air after the coronavirus. And then if you live in America, there's a lot of racial tension that's happening right now. My advice would be just take care of yourself always before you try to help the world. You cannot help the world without helping yourself. And so when you take care of yourself, you do the breath work that we talked about earlier on in the show, you take the time to breathe, I promise you, you will get guidance on what are the next steps I need to take to make this world a better place. But it always starts with you taking care of yourself first.
Great advice. Very much appreciated. And of course, for all of your time and gems and wisdom, Visa, thank you so very much for sharing this space with me today.
Thank you. Like I said, it's a pinch me moment. I can't believe this manifested itself.
It did. You made it happen, girlfriend. You did it. You did it. So thank you. And thank you, of course, to all of you as well, my Lady Boss listeners, for tuning into today's show. And I invite you to check out my website to contact me, reach out. I love hearing from all of you with any questions, or if you wish to talk about coaching, speaking engagements, or leadership consulting, louisehreid.com. Let's all live inspired and grow together and be brave, be bold, and be happy. Until next week, I'm Louise H. Reid, wishing all of you an amazing day. Goodbye, friends.
Bye.